Real Estate Pro Talk is a live radio talk show dedicated to educating its listeners on the entire spectrum of real estate matters. Part of the American dream is owning a home or investment property, or perhaps even becoming a real estate agent yourself. Paul Vanas and his team of real estate professionals have over 250 combined years of experience in the industry. In other words, we can make it happen for you. Why go down the road less traveled when we can put you directly on the real estate superhighway? Whether buying or selling in today's complicated real estate market, or if you just need advice about jumping into the real estate business for a career change, you'll need a decisive edge based on experience. Call Paul Vanas at 401-265-6144 for a free, no-obligation consultation. That's Paul Vanas at 401-265-6144.
Good afternoon, and my name is Paul Vanas, and welcome to Real Estate Pro Talk. This is a real estate-oriented program which will cover a variety of topics every Friday afternoon from 3 to 4 p.m. here on WOON Radio. Some of the topics we'll be talking about during our time together will be how to buy and sell a home, how to choose a real estate agent, creative financing, home inspections, private mortgage financing, how to buy a property with an IRA, and a host of other subjects. I've been in the real estate business coming up on 40 years now, of which I own a real estate brokerage company, a real estate school, and a land development company. All of the knowledge that we're going to try to impart on you today is based on the continuing education classes that I teach licensed real estate brokers and agents, along with my personal experience and those of our expert guests. The goal in doing this is so you'll have the information in hand when you meet a seasoned real estate professional. You're welcome to call us today at 401-766-1240 and ask any question on the subjects we'll be discussing. And of course, after the show, you can call me on my cell phone personally, which is 401-265-6144, and you can call me anytime and we can talk real estate if you choose. Today, I'm very pleased to have a guest who is Tom Kravitz. Tom is the town planner with the town of North Smithfield, and Tom has agreed to come in today and talk about planning and planning boards and just what a town planner does. So welcome, Tom.
Hi, Paul. How you doing?
I'm doing well, thanks. And of course, Tom, every show I always start off because I always find it interesting that's, how people ended up in the position that they are in today. And, I find that many people aren't born town planners, just like I wasn't born a real estate agent. But eventually, through the long and rocky road, I became a real estate agent. I'm sure the same is for you. Tell me how did you get going in this?
Yeah, I've had the same thoughts. I ask myself, what am I doing here? How did I get here? But I enjoy it. I enjoy the profession. I'm going to work backwards a bit here, because I started off actually at Rhode Island College. I was first of all born in Cumberland, Valley Falls. My grandfather had a printing company there on Marshall Avenue, as we were talking before the show, and so I grew up in that print shop. And the printing industry changed dramatically, as you know, through the 90s. And when I got out of high school, I went to Rick. I was a graphic arts major, actually thinking about going into printing and doing that. And we were working with and looking at the technology that was coming out. And there were these really cool presses from Germany that were the first, multicolored digital imaging printing presses that could print 9 different colors at once off a CD.
Really?
With computers. And It was something that my grandfather had passed away, and the business kind of folded up there, and I was like, okay, I'm not doing this. Yeah. So actually wasn't doing too well at Rick either, and I was looking to transfer, and sat down with a guidance counselor, and she says, tell me about your life, what you're doing and stuff. What are your interests? And I told her, I says, well, interested in earth science, stuff like that. I had other interests besides graphic arts. She says, well, if you were to go to college and just study something, what would it be? What do you like? I said, I always liked the weather. I was always fascinated by the blizzard of '78.
Really? Wow.
And she says, well, what about these programs? You can go anywhere in the United States and you can pay Rick's tuition and your host school's housing cost for a full year. Well, I'm thinking by then I'll have 3 years under my belt. Maybe I'll go somewhere else, pay. So we're looking at schools, and she finds a school, California University of Pennsylvania, which is funny to begin with there.
Right.
People are saying, what's this, It's one of the state schools in Pennsylvania, in mining country, out there in western PA. And I said, I'll go there. They had an earth science program. It was liberal arts earth science. So you had all kinds of coursework in that. And the concentration was meteorology. They just started up a program.
Wow.
Didn't even look at the school. Packed my car, drove out there.
Really?
Went to that school, yeah.
Wow.
Turned out to be the best decision I made. I
Wow.
went there. I met the professors were great. They had one of them wrote his own textbook, Don Conti, worked with Larry Moses and Bill Gustin were the professors. And these guys were so passionate about earth science,
Wow.
And I was just away, got away. I was playing basketball for 3 hours a night there. It was great. And
that's a
just
pretty
studying.
intense program, because I have a couple of friends who are and clients who work in the meteorological field, and
Yeah.
one of them is at the Taunton
A climate center or something,
at the climate
data center.
Yeah, and that they were telling me some of the classes that they had to take to get that degree, and that's
Yeah.
pretty intense.
Yeah, those are the math minds. And I'm not a math person. People that know me, so. But there's broadcast meteorology. There's a whole other element to it that's
Okay, I see.
not so mathematically based or engineering based like
I
it
see.
is. But anyway, thoroughly enjoyed that program. Totally excelled at school. Ended up getting a scholarship. Finished there in Harrisburg with an internship. And their equivalent of our DEM in Harrisburg, the DEP, Department of Environmental Protection. That's where I started getting introduced to this kind of the policy stuff, the government type work level, but it was very high level, the state government, Pennsylvania. Graduate from there, come back, did a stint actually as a substitute teacher in Scituate while thinking, all right, go to grad school. What do I want to do in grad school? I knew I wanted to. I loved pouring concrete, but I didn't want to do it for a living. That's
Right.
one of the things I did through college.
Yeah.
A job, by the way, which should be it's a frame of reference for life, for hardworking. I always laugh. I talk with Gary Azofsky, who I work for now in North Smithfield. I said, we work hard, but we don't really work. When you're carrying forms, pouring concrete when it's 20 degrees, frame of reference for life. But anyway, someone said to me, well, geez, look at this major, a master's in community planning. And I started reading the books about the coursework, and it had the ties from, earth science, all of that, how we impact the environment. It seemed like the perfect connection for how people are concerned about the environment still today, of course, right? And it's like, geez, these two things really go together, how people, where we live, where we drive, where we work,
Right.
How we impact the environment, everything we do. So at least I could kind of see that connection between my studies as an undergraduate and then jumping into planning.
Wow.
Unbeknownst to me, though, of course, the politics and how planning is in
Sure,
real life, it's
sure.
a lot different.
Sure, but that sounds like that was the aha moment.
Yeah,
Kind of.
it just kind of, I was comfortable with the mapping.
Mm-hmm.
I always loved looking at, maps, things from the 30,000-foot view, which of course, earth science is like that, but meteorology is like that. But there's a lot of elements to planning that you're constantly looking at the maps to see how where we live, work, and play, how subdivisions, and we'll get into it, housing developments, how things interact with each other. What kind of density should we put here or there, or what kind of use, and how would that affect this if we do that? And
Right.
a lot of it's traffic analysis based, and it's interesting. I found it very rewarding, though.
So you ended up in Burrillville, right, for a number of years.
Yeah. Yep.
And now you're in North Smithfield,
Right.
as the town planner, which is quite a bit of responsibility. And Tom, why don't you tell our audience because it's we are a real estate oriented program, and my goal is to educate the listener in facets of real estate that they may not know or may not understand.
Sure.
For years, I didn't know what a town planner did, and I was in the real estate business.
Yeah.
So can you kind of just briefly explain what it is that you do? What does a town planner do for a municipality?
Yeah, there's clearly a piece of it to real estate. Day to day, it's chaotic. This is, like most people, most jobs, constant phone calls, emails, whatnot, about different aspects to either developments or grant work. We talked briefly about comprehensive plan that we just completed in North Smithfield and just got adopted by the state. Happy to say, first time since 1995.
Wow.
But yeah, we work for planners are the technical experts for planning boards,
Okay.
primarily. But there's other aspects to the community, like in Barberville, where I worked for 16 years, from 2001 to 16. They had a redevelopment authority there, so I worked with them. You'll assist the zoning board. I've even testified before my own zoning board if there are projects that the administration really supports. You know, we had a lot of success in Stillwater doing that, which I'll touch on later. But you're constantly you're taking phone calls from the old lady who's complaining about I can't see pulling out of my driveway because my neighbor hasn't cut his shrubs and I'm getting agitated, and you try to you're all over the place.
Okay, so it is that that true. Okay, okay, all right.
It's
all right.
a lot of policy work that we do.
Yep.
The comp plan is a challenging one. There's zoning policy. We were dealing with solar policy in North Smithfield. I wrote the medical marijuana ordinance that we wrote there in North Smithfield. First thing we tackled in 17, and I like the job because it's so dynamic like that. You're going out, you're doing inspections on subdivisions, there's drainage issues. You're not an engineer, but you're out there gathering data, working with architects and engineers, trying to solve problems, trying to solve policy issues. And it all does get back to real estate in the sense that the primary, time that's taken up with the job, a lot of it is with subdivision activity. As you know, the Subdivision Enabling Act, Zoning Act. You work with the planning board and the development community who want to construct homes in certain areas. Right. And so you'll work with the planning board to just execute that process in a manner that's fair and in accordance with the rules, And
so you're kind of like a combination traffic cop and soothsayer, because you want to make sure that that the town has a vision, the municipality has a vision of where we're going, where we want to be in 10 years from now or 5 years from now, and you're kind of the person that directs the development towards that goal, right?
Exactly. And you bring up a thought that part of the job is funny because you're constantly working as if you're up against a deadline, like you're working feverishly for things that are going to happen like 6-8 months down the road, But when you're working on a comp plan or you're writing a grant and you're doing all these things together and you're working with the development community to get their applications processed, everything in government is, okay, I got to meet this agenda. Do I need support from the council? When's their meeting? And you're working backwards. All right, I got 3 weeks to do this. And everything is to meet those time frames, and things move slowly, and you submit your grants. You're waiting to get them approved, and along with that, you may be doing procurement stuff. You're trying to bid projects. Right. You're trying to get things accomplished. So all this is done too within the budget cycle of the community, which has its own time frame, and everything is. It's funny. It's a time frame that can be drawn out, but it's also, like I said, it's something you're always rushing to get something accomplished. Right. I guess because in government, if you're not doing that, you're not going to get anything done anyway. I mean, that's
and that's not easy because not only do you have the challenges of working in government, and then of course the populace at large. You have to be, when I say soothsayer, I mean a visionary, because you have to understand and kind of see into the future about these trends. Like if anyone asked me 15 years ago about solar farms, right, I would have said, well, you're crazy. That's never going to happen around here. And if they had asked me 40 years ago about cellular towers, I would have said, nah, that's never going to happen. What is this, Dick Tracy? So you kind of have to not only look at the current trends, you have to kind of look into the future to see where things will be, and then how is that going to work within your community, correct?
Right, that's true. And then you have to carry through these plans through successive administrations. That's the challenge.
That's
because
huge.
Like in Barberville, all that time, there's 4-year election cycles, right, with the council. And North Smithfield is 2 years. Right. So I've already seen different council people, and they come in, they get elected, they want to effectuate change and contribute to that community. That's why they were put in office, and you have to introduce them. All right, here's where we were at. Here's what we got going on, and hopefully they'll buy into the projects. And we've got some good stuff going on in North Smithfield too, with Branch Village, which I'll touch on later. But maybe one of the things we could do for people in real estate is go into some of the process about what goes into a subdivision. And
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
And you know, but before we get into that though, because you just touched on something, you said something about new people coming in, and of course, with new people come new ideas and a fresh vision and excitement and enthusiasm. But it reminds me of a person who came into my office years ago, and he was a young guy, 21 years old, and he was going to get his real estate license, and he was going to light the world on fire. And he's in my office, and he's going to do this, and he's going to do that, and it's the stuff to me. I'm sitting there listening to this diatribe.
Had all this ambition, right?
And all this ambition, and he's going on and on and on, and I'm saying, oh my God, this guy's not going to last 2 weeks, you know? And then reality kind of set in. But, you know, I'm sure you have to deal with a lot of that, because now you have new people coming in with a new vision. They're excited, and then of course you have to enlighten them as to the reality of where we're going to this, because you're working on a completely different scale. You're working on a 10 or 15, 20-year scale, where they may be working on the here and now, right? Right.
That's challenging. And you say something that made me think of myself too. In my experience in this career is when I came in Barville, I was it's naive, I guess, and ambitious, just like how you described. Right. But you looked at Barville, and they had a plan for Stillwater. And just driving through that town, once you drive through it, it's like, wow, look at these old villages where the mills took root, right? And you see the mill housing, and it was just screaming out to be rebuilt. It was right in the center of Harrisville.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And when I first got hired, they had a provision. They were thinking about putting the library out behind off of Hill Road. And I'm saying, oh, man, let's put it in Stillwater. We have to. We I think, broke a P&S to do that, brought it back to Stillwater, and I said, look, it's going to be a little more expensive, and it's going to be hard to do, but we hustled up a lot of grant money, redeveloped Stillwater. It was a contaminated site, of course, and you know what it's like now. It's got started off with Stillwater Heights.
I drove by that, crossing over that bridge for years. I always looked to the left, and I said, my God, what... This had it's so unique, number one, to the history of the town, number one, and number two, it was just sitting there doing nothing. You know, it was
it's
like
a complete
jewel.
Civic center now.
Right.
I go in there with my wife and kids, and I'm so proud. I go in there, and it's like, because I remember going to the Cumberland Library growing up there. My parents would take me there.
You know, in the monastery. Yeah.
Yeah, in the monastery. And now you go in the library in Harrisville to have. To help the planning board get all that done, and the redevelopment agency and all the good people that worked for the town, all the councils, the makeup of the councils, people at the different times, they all kept their eye on that, and it was great. Once we got some grant money and got the first piece of it rolling, I just kept the master plan out there and kept shoving it in people's faces. The architects are so critical to planning, because once they come up with a vision, they do the sketches, you draw it. It gets people can see it, and they can see the end goal, and you just keep hammering away at it, So,
and I don't want to hop around on our questions and answers, but I think it's important, since you're on that right now. What the methodology of putting something like the Stillwater complex together? I mean, we talk about it in over 2 minutes, and it sounds great now that it's been done, but I'm sure that took a period of years, right?
It took a good 8 years to do it.
And it involved, you just mentioned grants, architects, the town council, I'm sure, had to get involved.
Public
the planning
hearings.
board, the people in the town.
Yeah.
Right?
The framework, we'll get into a little bit of the laws here, because the Subdivision Enabling Act is the framework, the state statute that sets out the process. And for minor subdivisions of 5 lots or fewer, let's say, you have really just 3 steps in the process, the first one of which is optional. You have pre-application, prelim, and final. Major land developments, 6 lots or more, or they have a bit more of an elaborate process. It's like a 4-step. You have pre-app, master plan, then preliminary, then final. What we did for Stillwater, as I said, we master planned it. Like I said, we conceptualized all the phases and all the uses. We knew we needed the senior housing, which happened first. Once we got a big grant for that from HUD, that took off. Then we tackled the library in the north end, put the roadway in. That allowed the clock tower to be accessed and redeveloped. So what we did is I put the master plan before the planning board with input from the agency. Had public hearings on it. Hey, this is what we want to do. We told the people.
Now, initially, were they looking at you saying, "Oh, Tom, are you crazy? This is never going to happen"? Or,
I think so.
Or were they rallying behind you?
A little of both.
Okay,
You're always going to have cynics in the audience, right? And
yep.
see, this is the government. They're not going to be able to do this, you know.
Right.
That's part of the challenge, though.
Exactly.
That's one of the reasons I like working for the government.
That's why I asked that question, because no one ever throws roses at you initially.
Yeah.
They throw roses at you when the job is done and it looks wonderful. But in the beginning, I don't know, is it who's the head of Virgin Atlantic Airways, Branson?
Oh, yeah.
He said something to the effect, if they're not calling you crazy, you're not doing your job right, or something like that. So
when people go home, they watch the mass media at night, and they come in, they're like, the government, you're not going to be able to accomplish this.
Right.
One of the reasons I like local government at our level, again, is this is where the rubber meets the road, right? And you can accomplish things. You're working with developers, getting it done. And one of the things I was going to say is when we're up there with the master plan of Stillwater, it was mid-2000s, and we were talking about market a few minutes ago, and you couldn't find a house in Barville for like less than $225, $230 even. I remember looking through the bargain bar. I always look through every week, and it's like, wow, the prices are nuts,
Right.
And it was like, it was easy to make the case to do affordable housing there. It was needed, and that's where the money was to execute the clock tower. So they had partnered with.
So that primed the pump for the rest of the project.
Yeah, the timing was right for that.
Wow.
The other thing I like to say about that project, the whole master plan, if the library hadn't happened, the library needed a general obligation bond to get it approved. Mm-hmm. And the votes, if you go back and look in Barville, it literally was almost like a 50-50.
Really?
It almost didn't pass. If the library didn't pass, how are we going to execute that?
Really?
I would have been dead in the water saying, what the heck are we going to do now?
So it was 50-50?
It literally passed by like 300-something votes.
Oh, so it was a general vote that
locally,
went out during one of the election cycles?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's how close it was.
Yeah, and thank God, because people were saying, what do we need a library for,
Yeah, right.
It's so good for kids, though. I mean, you go in there, they're amazing, people, and a lot of the libraries are transitioning. There's a number of computer terminals in there. People use the internet, looking for jobs, applying for things. It's great. It's still...
It becomes a social center of sorts.
Yeah.
My son, I told you, my son lives in town, and he lives in one of the condos in town, and he's a young guy, and he spends a lot of time down in the library. And he's just hanging around.
Beautiful.
He takes a ride down there, and, he tells me, that... It's a beautiful place. I know I've been in there. I've been at a few of the planning board meetings there. And it's a real class. And the river back there is beautiful.
Yeah.
It's all cleaned up.
That plaza space on the Clear River, it's fascinating. And then
it
we
really
did the
is.
bike path there, too, connecting Harrisville to Pasco.
Nice.
Now, Pasco is getting all fixed up. All that was being done at the same time.
Wow.
Positioning the real estate is actually one of the affordable housing projects in Pasco. Put a good $5 million into Pasco Main Street.
Yeah.
Pasco Main Street happened because of the pro forma, the development pro forma that the Green Ridge paid for.
Really?
So it's all linked together, and all of that, I think, makes Barville, from a real estate perspective, at least on the single family side, for all those rural homes in the F5 zone, very appealing, because they've got... It's kind of a mix of an urban feel. It's a very rural town.
Yeah.
But all of a sudden, Pasco is beautiful. It's like it used to be. We mimic the architecture, like I was saying, on Pasco Main Street. And it's just a vibrant place, great place.
Yeah, and of course you're in North Smithfield now, so you want to take a similar vision to...
Same thing. They
North
got
Smithfield.
Similar...
But you're a young guy. You have enough years left to put a couple of eight-year projects together.
Oh, it's the motivation is still there. They got the projects motivate you. Stillwater, Branch Village in North Smithfield, they have a similar plan. They got a redevelopment district that's set up by ordinance. All that groundwork has already been laid down, so we're in the implementation phase of this, and I'm just about to send a grant in to Commerce, Rhode Island Commerce Corp. It's called Site Readiness, because we've been doing a lot of work with trying to position and develop a new roadway, access to the south, right off of Pound Hill Road.
I see.
Because that's what that needs. Great Road is it's overburdened right now with traffic. It needs an outlet to the south, and especially if we can put direct access right to 146, it's going to make the commercial component of that take off.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
That's the next Amica, the next Citizens.
So you've identified that.
Oh, yeah.
As,
and we're going after that. And the council's been great supporting all the traffic studies that we're doing up front to lay the groundwork and do the analysis. And now we're putting in for design funds to get that designed and permitted. And I want to record it. I want to actually record the roadway and get it positioned, because that's 12 to 18 months of work you get out of the way. That makes that property very appealing, so for investment. So
now, did you run into the same issue like initially with this particular project? Do you run into the same issue where people are kind of, well, I don't know if we need that, or
like I said, they went through a lot of the planning and the master planning piece of it already. The ordinance work is done. They've had a number of hearings. They approved a redevelopment district plan under previous administrations, which did a great job with that. And like I said, so now we're in the implementation part of it.
Wow.
We get the thing permitted. I'll bring it back before the planning board because we have no tenants yet, per se. Well, it'll be a minor land development for the roadway itself, just to bring an update to the town, and the planning board, and have them get that plan endorsed, assuming we get the grant and do the design and everything. Right. So we're going to work on it.
Now, is there an estimated timeline, a time frame that you'd like to get this done by and completed?
It's the next 18 months.
Okay. Oh, so it's relative in your world. That's relatively quick.
That's fast. Yeah.
That's relatively quick.
And then hopefully we get some investors really looking at that, and that can take off. Once you get the one big tenant, if you can get it, or multiple. They can invest in the infrastructure, the sewer and the water, which there is sewer there. The railroad goes right into there too.
Nice.
And that could be reactivated. We were working with the company that just bought out, it seemed like yesterday, P&W, Gnessing, Wyoming, and now they're selling out to another outfit. Yeah. So we got to wait till that dust settles, and try to work with them.
Wow.
Should we get a tenant that needs a rail car so many days a week?
What an asset, though. I mean, that's it's not easy to install. Wow, that's great. Today we're talking to Tom Kravitz, who is the town planner for the town of North Smithfield, and we will be right back. We're going to take a quick commercial break, and we'll be right back.
Real Estate Pro Talk is a live radio talk show dedicated to educating its listeners on the entire spectrum of real estate matters. Part of the American dream is owning a home or investment property, or perhaps even becoming a real estate agent yourself. Paul Vanas and his team of real estate professionals have over 250 combined years of experience in the industry. In other words, we can make it happen for you. Why go down the road less traveled when we can put you directly on the real estate superhighway? Whether buying or selling in today's complicated real estate market, or if you just need advice about jumping into the real estate business for a career change, you'll need a decisive edge based on experience. Call Paul Vanas at 401-265-6144 for a free, no-obligation consultation. That's Paul Vanas at 401-265-6144.
And we are back with Real Estate Pro Talk on this beautiful, chilly fall afternoon in November 8th. It's already, we got Thanksgiving a couple of weeks away, and I can't believe how fast time goes by, Tom. You had mentioned time kind of kicked in with you when you started having kids, and that's what happens. All of a sudden, time starts to compress, and then in my world, I tell a joke. I tell my wife, to me, garbage night is Monday nights at my house, and I have to put the garbage cans out on Monday nights for the Tuesday pickup. It seems like every night to me now is garbage night. It's weird, how the time just compresses. But we've been talking to Tom Kravitz, the town planner for the town of North Smithfield, and he touched on some interesting things. Tom, there are a couple of projects that I know you want to talk about, but for in layman's terms, if someone wants to develop a piece of land, or if they want to, let's say they want to, people had a lot next door and they want to carve off the land and sell the lot to their children or to someone else. How does one go about doing that?
Good question. They'll come to me. We'll sit down, look at the property. Their first course of action is going to be to engage a surveyor more often than not. That's the primary profession that's going to take them through that process. If it could be a neighbor just moving a lot line because there's sheds on someone's property, or you see that a lot, Those are called administrative subdivisions. I approve those. They don't go before the planning board.
Okay. So there's no
that's
hearing or anything?
Yeah,
you can just,
that's a quick thing. Unless sometimes the administrative subdivision will affect, zoning requirements. Maybe they don't have enough frontage.
I see.
Or they're going from a situation where they're conforming. The lots meet the dimensional requirements. Let's say it's 200 feet of frontage. But they got to go down to 180 feet of frontage. Well, in that case, they got to go to the zoning board to get relief. So, but in situations like that where the homes are, let's say, developed and there's an encroachment, I'm always going to support that. I mean, the homes are developed. They're not looking to capitalize, build more homes. And it's the ones projects that come in and a person says, hey, I want to cut my lot up into, 5 different lots or 6 lots. And you really should stick to your zoning densities, because your zoning is what sets the town's long-term density, population, whatnot. And you want to kind of stay true to that. Mm-hmm. That's everything that we talked about. Well, what the comprehensive plan is projected based on build out. Yep. How many homes can a community, in theory, kind of afford? It's you stick to your zoning. That's what sets your build out. So, but generally they'll work with the surveyor. If it's a minor subdivision, which is 2 or more lots, that goes to the planning board.
I see. Not
necessarily a hearing required or notice. If they're constructing a roadway, then there's a public hearing, notification within 200 feet. And like I said, the bigger projects, 6 or more lots, those are going to have 2 cracks at the apple with respect to the public they'll get. And we're just coming off of this last night. I had planning board last night for the expansion of the mosque on Sales Hill Road.
I see.
That was a master plan. Major project, master plan. People got notice. It's not legally a public hearing, but it's what they call an informational meeting in the law, where you send them a postcard notice, people come. And the chairman's good about letting people speak. But we didn't get a lot of interest for that project. There was a couple people that spoke in favor of it, actually, because they like the fact that they're going to take a lot of the parking. There's some parking issues on Sales Hill Road with that, and they're going to provide more parking to take the cars off of Sales Hill. So
the notice section, the public notice, does everybody, is it just an ad that goes out in the paper, or is it they're mailing, they get mailings like a zoning ordinance type of thing?
At master plan, you'll do the notice in the paper and send postcard notice. And the next phase is preliminary application, where whether it's a subdivision like we were talking about, more often than not, there's wetlands. It seems like in Rhode Island, the only land that's left either has wetlands on it or ledge or steep slope, So you'll get your wetlands flagged by a wetlands biologist. You have to stay so far away from those wetlands, depending on the type that they are. Yep. And you'll get what's called DEM permit for that through the Department of Environmental Management. I speak in acronyms. I got to remember who your listeners are, but and they'll come back to the planning board for your, if it's a preliminary application, you'll have a public hearing. People had received little green card notices for those.
I see.
And they can provide input on whatever the issue may be, and it could be a myriad of things. More often than not, it's traffic related stuff. Some of the things I'll look at are vertical and horizontal curves in the roadway. And it's funny, there's leeway with the job too, right? Because if someone wants to you own a lot and you want to cut it up into 2 or 3 house lots, and you don't have any sight distance issues or anything, I'm not going to make the person get a traffic engineering study, and pay thousands of dollars. It's not necessary. But if there's a vertical curve, like I said, or a bend that you can't see around, well, I have them do a sight distance analysis, which is a much cheaper thing that's done, less expensive thing. Yeah, I'll probably ask for that. It depends. You try to work with people.
Safety reasons.
Exactly.
In case someone's pulling out of a driveway.
People who live in these homes, you don't want to set people up.
Sure.
For living on a. Actually, I live on a curve on Nib Road. It's you got to watch out. It's you want to try to set it up that way where it's safe for people. Sure.
And someone has to be the health, safety, and welfare police, to a degree, because once it's built and once it's done, there's no turning back, right? That problem's going to exist forever.
Exactly. It's funny, I work a lot with the building officials, of course. Health, safety, welfare from a housing code standpoint. They're very good at that. Joe Raymond's excellent at that at Barberville. And we have Carrie Anderson, who's great too, in North Smithfield. I'm fortunate, having changed towns like that, to have good people to work with. Your town is going to function as good as your department heads are. You know what I mean? And I'm blessed to have the experience of working with both. And so from general health, safety, welfare, from my perspective as a planner, you're right. You're looking at it from site planning perspective. Where's the home situated? Is their driveway at a pitch of 15%?
Right.
Or is it something palatable? Right. So there are features with the land that we have to work with the development community, way before the home is even built.
Really?
You're right, and someone who's buying a home, right? They don't know what goes into it
exactly
before that process happens.
So the first step, really, if I understood you right, the first step would be if you wanted to develop your land that you have, either if it's a single lot next door to your house, or if you have this piece of land that you want to develop. The first step would probably be to go into your office and talk to you about it.
Right.
And they can find out some of the particulars, what's allowed, what isn't allowed, and so on and so forth, correct?
Exactly. You bring a good point is the other thing is to set expectations for people. Mm-hmm. When they come in. You can't do this on the back of a napkin, like everything else in the world. You're gonna have to pay some money and get professionals who can draw up the plans in accordance with the laws and what they require now.
Sure.
There's ways to handle stormwater management. Stormwater is a big thing too, with more frequent, heavier rain events happening. Yep. They're finding that they're having to change some of the engineer and design parameters to develop our environment in a way that you're not adversely impacting your neighbor. With stormwater.
Look at that road in Johnston that was in the news.
Right.
Those folks that every time it rains, they get 6 inches of water in their on their road.
Yeah, you don't want to exacerbate existing problems or, God forbid, create your own. Then you really get egg on your face. You know. So.
Yeah.
People got to understand they're going to have to spend some money up front, get a surveyor and engineers potentially to really make sure they put forth a good plan that is not going to impact neighbors. That's a big part of it too.
So it has to be economically feasible for them too to do this, because a lot of folks, like in my business, they'll think, hey, I'm just going to, slam bam, throw up some lot lines, and then all of a sudden I have 3 extra lots to sell at $60,000 a lot, and whatever the price is. And of course, I'm making that up.
But, Oklahoma, you can do that. In Indiana,
right, exactly. So
it's just flat for miles.
Like everything else, there's a process and there's a way to do things and to do things right. It usually costs some money. But if you do it right and you do it professionally, you'll get what you ask for. But if not, if you try to shortcut it and short circuit it in any way, it's probably not going to happen.
Right.
Where would one find the rules and regulations for this type of or a development or really anything in the town? Is there a website? Is there a book that they would acquire?
Yeah, they all the cities and towns of Rhode Island, they're really good with all their websites. Obviously, at this point in time, 2019, they've got everything scanned. MuniCode is a company that a lot of towns use. And you'll find it through the planning department page or the zoning page. Some are usually different, some are on the same. And you just dive look for that, Subdivision Enabling Act is what it's called. Rhode Island General Law 4523 or 4524 is zoning. Yep. And, take a couple hours and read it. If you're, interested in doing something like that, it's a bit dry to read, but... Yep.
Of course, people don't like to read anymore. They would rather make a phone call and ask somebody else to read it for them.
And I get that. I mean, I respect that. People are busy and busy keeping up with the 24-hour news cycle, right? But I'll talk to anybody. And part of what I like about the job, it's funny, is just giving people your time. I'll be in the middle of doing something, trying to write something. It's funny. A lot of the grant work or the writing or the policy work, you have to kind of shut the door. Sometimes you just have to. If you're under the gun, you can say, I just can't take calls for this half of the day, But
exactly.
And it always seems someone will walk in and you look up and they just come right into the office. I'm in the vault in the back of town hall. And it's fun. That's what being professional is. Take a deep breath, sit down, give them the time. People appreciate conversation, and a lot of times, if someone's agitated about something, it's oftentimes it could be civil matter between a neighbor or a policy or something that's going on in town, and they're just they're pissed about it.
Yeah,
and you just talk to them, and you'll walk them back, and they just appreciate being given time that someone listen to them.
Sure.
And it just means so much to people nowadays. So I'll always do that.
That's right.
I get it from my grandfather, my father, especially, so personable. My father, he can remember, I don't care everybody's name. Everybody's name. He's amazing like that. And in the print shop, when they would walk in and see him, and he always talks to me, I knew so-and-so and so-and-so. Right. It's like, he is so far from being like a mayor, my father.
Yeah.
He has no interest in government, stuff like that. It's just a great person, but he's spectacular at that. He's just a good guy,
Yeah, and the fun, I call those the gut it minute people. You're in the middle of something.
Yeah.
And you need all your brain power, to put it to either this on a computer screen or reading something, and then you go, "Hey, Paul, you got a minute?" And it's like, I really don't, but you know what?
Exactly.
So
you answer the phone. Yeah, no, but yes.
Yeah. Well, that's great information. Now you talked about the Stillwater project in Harrisville and Pasco. Talk about the bike path went from Harrisville to Pasco, correct? That was an old train.
That was the New York, New Haven, Hartford line.
Okay.
Yeah, 66 feet wide in some spots on the original plat, which is in the Barville office.
That's wide for a train.
Yeah, it was set up for a double track in places.
Really?
Yep.
And that's now that turned into the bike path, which is today.
Yeah.
So what was the process of?
That was a fascinating project. The land was owned by the Barnes Concrete out of Connecticut. Bruce and David, his brother, great guys, and they wanted to develop it. And I said, I'm looking at it, saying, we knew we wanted it for a bike path. Yeah. I knew they wanted some of the material off it because they're in the sand and gravel business. I said, geez, if you could take this glaciated feature, this esker is what it was. It was like a trapezoidal, it was like 15 feet high, and there was a path on top of it. And it went south to Duck Pond from midway through Harrisville, Pasco. And it said, come at us with a condo plan. And they went to the planning board, and we took that legal record and morphed it into, hey, instead of condos, maybe you can have some of that material and give us a good deal on the land. And they did. And I think it was like $200,000. We got 52 acres of property and the bike path and the railroad bed. And they took the material out, got it permitted through DEM, used it for septic material or whatever else they did with it. And
quid quo pro. It was
a good project, really good project.
Win for both.
And got it approved through DEM, and they effectively lowered that path that goes to Duck Pond. And there's people by the thousands use that a week.
And exercise
all the time.
And
it's ultimately someday hopefully tie into a larger path eventually through North Smithfield, which has their own pieces that we're working on to get into the Blackstone spine, and all the way down to Pawtucket. And this is such a successful recreational project with the Cumberland Lincoln Path, as you know, which has been in for a while. And we got some other good projects going on in North Smithfield. Of course, we got solar going in certain projects.
I saw that
the industrial park.
I read in the paper there's a moratorium of sorts for a certain amount of time.
There is.
Just passed.
There is. The planning board worked through that quickly, though, and we got a draft of the ordinance back to the council. They're going to have a hearing on the 18th for that. I suspect that will go well, I hope, but we're working with the Beef Barn. Is looking for a new site.
Really?
Oh, yeah. That's going to be exciting. Over near the soccer facility. I just signed that administrative subdivision today.
Really?
Yep, off of Pound Hill, near Pound Hill Road. The Homestead Gardens, I think it was called. So we did when I first got hired there, I completed the Cumberland Farms. Funny little thing with that is last minute they come into me, and this sometimes happens too with planners, and they're like, at final plan, we want to make a change. And I'm like, all right, what's the change? Because he's thinking, don't make us go back to the planning board, right? He says, why not take out a row of pumps? I'm like, well, just do it. Obviously, who's going to argue that?
Sure.
I hear people still, when I go to Cumberland Farms, one of the reasons they like it, there's so much distance in between gas pumps.
Right.
It's very comfortable to go there and get gas. You don't feel like you're going to hit somebody. And so that project, I worked with them. I said, just give me a letter with a revised plan and do it. So they did that. They were great. And we did the Colbia, just did the Shell station. They're working on the Shell station over near School Street. It's a good project that went through quickly. We handled the National Grid. They realigned some of the big power lines over on Greenville Road. You probably saw that project if you were driving by there. That was another one. we got that through the planning board quickly. It was a minor project. They were just building a small 5,000 square foot steel building in the back. Right. But that was an interesting project because the way they explained it to me, the engineers, is all the way from like Millbury down to that point, and from that point south to the southern part of Rhode Island and Providence due east. They couldn't manipulate the power easily. That's acting as basically like a big switch station now, and they can isolate if they have an outage from there north and there south. Very important project that will provide the town with good revenue too going forward. Yeah,
that's interesting.
The stuff you get involved with, like I said,
again,
I'm dealing with gas pumps.
Yeah.
I'm dealing with
right. You're
it's
all
good.
across the map.
Yeah.
And you had mentioned a few minutes ago the 146, the interchange.
The light. We have another project. You go where the problems are, and depending on what it is. And in North Smithfield, everyone knows this in the region. I just got a text from a buddy of mine a couple Fridays ago. He says, "Get rid of this light," and there's a picture on my cell phone, and he's backed up south of the bridge of Route 99 where it crosses over 146 driving north. And we all know it's awful. The light has to go. Yeah. And
even today, on my way to the studio here, at 2:30 in the afternoon on a Friday afternoon, which you would think it would be a breeze, I was stopped at the intersection of 99 and 146 all the way to the light. And there was, at least a 7 to 10 minute wait.
And the issue now, it proliferates out into the community where, Old Smithfield Road was a problem. People were trying to cut through there to get to Dowling Village, and that was a big thing with the council, and they had hearings and trying to solve the issue. They ended up putting created a one-way, do not enter for a period of time.
And that's a narrow road. That's a very narrow country road.
These cars are bagging up all the way down Salesville Road. So you're looking at it and you're like, what's the fix? And when I first got hired, I started going through all the old engineering studies that DOT had, and I found one that actually had they were just looking at concepts. It was nothing, just throwing out ideas. But one idea was an at-grade rotary, like a 4-lane rotary, like at Twin River, but at grade. Okay. And I'm saying, that's ridiculous. I would never do that. How could you do that?
Right.
People doing 60, they got to go down to 10 miles an hour. But I took a derivative of that idea, and I said, what if you did like a grade separation, where you had a single-lane rotary effectively as a bridge at grade, and you submarine the 4 express lanes underneath it.
Ah, okay.
So, and you use the long H-ramp system, they're called CD lanes, collector distributor lanes. What that area has going for it, I think, is distance. You've got upwards of 18 to 2,000 feet in all directions where you can have people get on each H-ramp for whatever direction they're going, north, south, in each direction, right? So, and that would feed a single lane rotary at grade to maintain all the turning movements and keep traffic moving, but you depress the express lanes.
Sure.
You know what I mean? It would be, here's the thing, it would be very expensive, obviously, because you got to dig, and when you got to dig, you got to deal with drainage, utilities, whatever else is there. But it's the more I look at it, I'm really passionate about this one, and I'm pushing it through all the engineers, and all the engineers I talk to, they're like, they should at least look at it.
Right.
So we're trying to get this on what they call the TIP program, Transportation Improvement Program. I sent it in that way in 2017. The notion of saying, hey, let's play with the grades and do the inverse of an idea that they had before that, which was to bridge over east-west. Right. They were going to raise a bridge over Sales Hill Road towards Iron Mine Hill Road, and that would never work because you have to take property. As soon as you go up, unless you're doing it with vertical walls, which is difficult, you got to take property laterally. So if digging down, you're putting walls in, but you're not taking a lot of land laterally that way. So I think I'm really just trying to get the state to look at it and hopefully get it funded just to do 10% engineering. Just let's really look at it and see, hey, what would it cost? Could it be constructed logistically? What are the issues? You do it in phases. You got to move utility poles and whatnot. But the road is quite wide there. It's upwards of 120 feet wide.
Really?
Route 146, yeah. So that's an exciting project that I'm pushing it, behind the scenes. Well, I guess it's not behind the scenes now. But how many listeners do you have here? On the radio?
I'm glad you're always thinking, because we need thinkers in who are responsible for the future of our municipalities to see where we're going. We're going to have take one more commercial break. We have about 8 minutes left, and we'll be right back with Tom Kravitz.
Real Estate Pro Talk is a live radio talk show dedicated to educating its listeners on the entire spectrum of real estate matters. Part of the American dream is owning a home or investment property, or perhaps even becoming a real estate agent yourself. Paul Vanas and his team of real estate professionals have over 250 combined years of experience in the industry. In other words, we can make it happen for you. Why go down the road less traveled when we can put you directly on the real estate superhighway? Whether buying or selling in today's complicated real estate market, or if you just need advice about jumping into the real estate business for a career change, you'll need a decisive edge based on experience. Call Paul Vanas at 401-265-6144 for a free, no-obligation consultation. That's Paul Vanas at 401-265-6144.
And we are back to Real Estate Pro Talk. Of course, our guest today is Tom Kravitz, the town planner with the town of North Smithfield. Well, Tom, I'm glad, boy, we have a whole bunch of stuff to talk about that we're not going to get to today, obviously. And I'd love to have you back to talk about a lot of these issues, because I really think the public needs to or should understand. But just briefly, one subject I wanted to touch on before we leave 7 minutes from now is the comprehensive plan and affordable housing. In my business, whenever I speak to folks and I mention the word affordable housing, they think all of a sudden it's something terrible and the neighborhood is going to go downhill. And I try to explain to folks that affordable housing is just that. It's affordable. It's based on the income level, a certain income level of the people of the community that live there already.
Right.
And, it would be nice to have our children be able to come back and live in the community that they grew up in instead of being priced out of their community. Just imagine growing up in Boston
Right.
and not being able to afford to go back to the neighborhood you grew up in. Can you tell us?
Rhode Island.
And that's happened here.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate on affordable housing
Yeah,
just a little bit?
real quickly, the state had developed a low mod income housing act. They actually had that in 1991. So it's been around a while. It underwent a big change. I forget the exact year, 05, 06, but they opened up the law to private developers to construct affordable housing. And there was some zoning issues with that, whereby a developer, communities had to strive to achieve 10% of their total housing stock as affordable. Okay, so it wasn't happening. So they changed the law. Now it's happening because developers come in, they can do it. They can put, if you don't have 10% of your housing stock affordable in accordance with state law, these housing developments can take root anywhere in your community.
I see.
And it might be in an area where you don't want it. In a rural spot with high density. And getting back to what I was saying before, they don't have to abide by your zoning density.
I see.
They really don't. I mean, it's challenging.
So it circumvents the zoning rules?
In a way, yeah.
Okay.
And it was accelerated. I think they might have changed that, but it was also had an accelerated approval process to do it. So in Barrville and in other areas, in North Smithfield too, we're tackling this at High Rocks, which was supposed to provide affordable units, and they didn't do so, but they've been great with us. I think they're going to come up with a good plan to do that in the mill now. We're working to try to execute the housing where we want it, so we don't get it where we don't want it. I don't know how else to say it, but that's really what it means.
Sure.
And by way of numbers, I get the 2019. The income limits are set by HUD, and Rhode Island Housing distributes them.
I see.
And you look at, there's two key numbers to know. Like in a rental situation, it's all on a percentage of the area median income. So 100%, like I told you earlier, 100% at for 4-person, and this goes by metropolitan statistical area, so it's Providence, Fall River, 81,900. That's 100% area median income.
So that's the median income that a family of 4 would be earning based on the census in that particular area.
HUD has some crazy formula that I could never begin to explain, but these are the numbers they give us. So if you're a couple, 2 people at 80% of the median, you're earning here, it says 52,400.
Okay.
So, the Pasco Grammar School was one in Pasco. One of the first projects I tackled there with the administration. Gave the building away for $1 in exchange. Got 18 affordable units there, and we knew it was coming. We knew it was coming. Friend of mine just closed on it there. It's a great project. Restored the building beautifully to its original style. Same in Stillwater with the clock tower.
And it adds to your housing stock.
Adds
right?
to your housing stock. So if you can reuse existing buildings and do it, it's great. It adds to community character, So the law, though, goes from that 100% all the way up to 120 too. And they're doing that because, by the way, a family of 3 at 120% is $88,450. That's their income. So they can translate that to what would be the sale price of a unit too, about what you can afford, about not 30% of your income not going to utilities and mortgage, whatnot. And you come up with a sales price too for these units. So it's they're trying to target people that, like we said, we were talking before the show. What are the rental prices right now? $1,000 to $1,200 all day. If you got a car payment and you're paying rent and you don't have money for a down payment on a house and you want to buy a condo or a single family home, you get your work cut out for you to save. Yeah, so trying to hit that target there where people are making fair wages, but still trying to the upward mobility. They're trying to advance and have the means to live in a place.
We all started somewhere. We all started, we all climbed the ladder of life, and we should, give someone else a shot. And I think it's a noble cause, but I think there's a misconception when people hear affordable. They just think that it's some crazy government project that's coming in, and it's really not. It's for your neighbors. It's for your children. It's for your family. It's for everyone else. It's for your neighbors' children, so who are just starting off in life, who aren't making the money of a 45-year-old. They're making, a 22 or 25 or whatever. You're starting off at life with a much lower wage.
And there are other programs too. There's for people who are disabled, challenges. This Section 8 voucher program. There are other programs that Rhode Island Housing administers. Those vouchers, they run with the person. So you could move from place to place. This type of housing we're talking about so far in communities like Barville, North Smithfield is subsidized on the front end for working people. That's what they're striving to do.
That makes perfect sense. Well, we got about a minute to go, Tom. Would you mind giving our audience your contact information at Town Hall, in case any of this is of interest to them? They can come in and you can walk them through the process personally.
I'll leave my number. I'm at North Smithfield Town Hall. There's 2 buildings there. I'm at the one in Slatersville with the white columns in front of it on Main Street. My phone number there is 767-2200, extension 312. And my email is tkravitz@nsmithfieldri.org.
Fantastic. Well, thanks, Tom. Thanks for coming in today. I'm sure we're going to have you back because we have a lot more to talk about that we never got to today. Next week, we're going to have Sam Alba of the Alba Real Estate Team on to talk about some real estate brokerage issues. And until then, good luck, and we'll talk to you next week.